Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pilots on the Fly. I'm Captain Bob Dallas. No, I'm not an actual pilot. I'm an aviation enthusiast. But if you're looking for a real pilot, I can get you one in a jiffy. He's sitting right next to me over here. He's not only my good friend, he's also my coach. He coaches me on the Ask Pilot Bob capsules. He's always giving me some good advice. And he's my co-star and co-host. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Cartwright.
Hello, glad y'all could join us.
Captain, so fun to have you with us. Again, it's a promising show. We have a lot of nice things to talk about tonight. Just before we went live on the TikTok audience, would have the privilege of coming on live with us 10 minutes before we go into the show. We were talking about the shortage with the pilots, and that's something that's still happening right now, as you were saying, Captain.
Mm-hmm. Definitely sure is. And there's a lot of different things that they're saying that cause the pilot shortage. And one of them is the 1,500-hour rule that it requires a pilot for an airline to get 1,500 hours before they can get their ATP license. And ATP is what's considered the Airline Transport Pilot's License to be able to become an airline pilot. So 1,500 hours is what it takes in the United States to do that. And that's a pretty lot of hours when it comes to building time.
Okay, so when we're talking about 1,500 hours, can you elaborate for us, Haas? What does it mean exactly? Is that from the moment you are actually signed up, you're taking your theory classes? Does that include the flying time alone? What is the 1,500 hours exactly?
Well, let's talk about becoming a pilot, and we'll work up to that. First thing you've got to do is get your private pilot's license, and that's at least 40 hours. Then after that, you're going to get your what's called an instrument rating, and that's at least another 40 hours. So to get your commercial license on top of that to be able to fly for hire, is your commercial license is your next step is 250 hours. Then your next step above that is going to be your airline transport pilot license, and that requires 1,500 of flight hours to be able to do that. Now, multiple people gain their hours in different ways. I was the lucky one to be able to gain my hours just by flying, by owning planes since college. And I didn't become an ATP rated pilot until I was 45. So I had 21 years of flying before I became an ATP pilot. So anyway, outside of that, that 1,500-hour rule came about because the families and victims of the Kogan air crash back in 2009 made a concerted effort to lobby the FAA to implement this rule, and it's a kind of a weird rule. Now, I think as far as the rules go, it's not a bad rule, but there's a lot of people that have considered this being the biggest problem with getting new pilots to come into the field because of the expense of getting that 1,500 hours. And again, multiple people do it. Once you get your commercial rating, a lot of people go to their CFI to do it. Then they start teaching people how to fly, and then they'll typically spend 3 to 5 years teaching people how to fly to gain enough power and of time to be able to get that 1,500 hours in to go to their airline transport side of it.
Well, getting those 1,500 hours may not be easy for everybody because every time you got to bring a plane up, it costs some money. I know of some people, they bring some friends. Hey, you want to go fly with me? They bring maybe 2 or 3 friends, and they're the ones who split the expense to take the plane up into the air so he can get his hours. Does it work the same in the U.S.?
Well, when you're not a commercial pilot and you're not flying under a commercial license, doing one of multiple ways to fly, you can fly the 135 World, or you can fly a Part 91. 41 sightseeing tours type of flights. So that's the typical 2 other ways that you can gain hours, but somebody else is paying for the time that you're flying the airplane. Same thing with a CFI. So when you're a certified flight instructor, you're teaching somebody else and they're paying for the plane time plus your time. So when it comes to shared expense, a lot of people like to do that to be able to get to their 250 hours to become a commercial pilot. So the 250 hours is on top of the 80 that we mentioned earlier, the 40 for the private pilot, and then the other 40 for the instrument rating. And then you've got to come up with a lot of hours after that to get your 250 together to take your commercial pilot's license. So a lot of people do what's called a shared expense flight. Now in America, you can split the cost between three people evenly, and because you're not really a commercial pilot at that point, you're a private pilot still. If you're taking 2/3, or the two people are paying the one guy to fly the airplane, here in America, that is actually illegal.
Oh, okay. So that I was about to ask you that if it's legal to do that in the States. Well, I'm talking about this. This is something that happened like a long time ago. Maybe the rules have changed here too.
Yeah, I don't know the Canadian rules on that, so it's a little different here in the States.
So okay, so someone gets his pilot license, he starts flying, but then again, the first jobs he's going to be getting are not necessarily high wages.
No, definitely not. Typically, a CFI will earn about $20 to $40 an hour doing pilot training here in the States. Now,
Wow.
if they're flying sightseeing tours, they're going to get probably about the same $20 to $40 an hour. So it just depends. A lot of people do other types of jobs as well, but it's usually not very high pay. Going to the airlines is usually typically where the good pay starts.
So the screening process is someone who leaves pilot school, then he goes on to leave to work for these private companies. And he finally makes it. He's hired as a first officer for a commercial airline. But the screening he's got to go through, the tests he's got to pass are enormous. I mean, they just don't take anybody like that. Right? I mean, you have to go through a lot of things, right?
You're talking about on the initial. You're talking about on the initial hiring process of an airline.
That's right. An airline hiring, let's say, I don't name any airline, but Airline Z hiring this new guy. He's qualified. This new lady. She's going to start the training, but before she becomes part of the payroll, she's going to be hired as a pilot. The screening process, I mean, the tests they have to pass before they're hired, they must be enormous. There must be a lot of testing.
Well, typically the first thing that happens when you're going to apply for a job at the airlines, you're going to put in an application on a website, and then you're going to have to go through a screening process. And that screening process includes several tests. It's basically, there's some math tests to it, there's some psychological tests to it, and there's also some just general knowledge tests to it. So they're actually testing you a lot of different ways when you go through those initial screenings, when you fill out that initial application to work there. So you've got to really pass all those things before they'll even call you to get an interview.
Well, that sounds a lot like, of course, the implications are not the same. It's not the same kind of job. But I remember when I went for my city bus driver job, I had to go through countless tests. It was like psychological tests, physical tests. It was like, oh my God, this is like ridiculous. You know, asking you what the baby, what a baby cow is called. And what a cloud like above 40,000 feet. Well, I guess there are no clouds up there, but a cloud above 10,000 feet, what you call that? And if there's an air mass coming in, I go, I'm a bus driver. I don't know about this stuff. So, and I'm asking myself, why are they asking all these questions? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's not pertinent. You know, it's not fair. I may lose out on the job because I don't know what you call a baby cow.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's just the first process of getting in the door to becoming an airline pilot. Now, the second process, once you get that initial interview, there will be a multiple panel interview. The interview will include an HR interview, which will basically be they'll ask you a lot of what if questions and stuff like that. You will have some scenario-based interview questions by usually the chief pilot, maybe the chief training officer or something like that in the company. To see if you're going to be able to answer some basic questions as well, some scenario questions of like, what if the captain shows up in the cockpit and you smell alcohol on his breath? Now, that might be an HR question, but that's also a scenario question of saying, all right, how would you handle the situation? So, and then there's also situations of maybe fuel management. Okay, you've got to divert from an aircraft, and what is your resources to be able to handle that diversion, and how would you go about, because you can't land at the one airport that is now closed due to the weather. And so they want you to walk through the process of that stuff as a part of that interview. Now, once you get past the interview section and you actually get an offer letter, then you have to go through several background checks. The one is a driving test background check as well, because they want to check your DMV records to make sure you haven't got reckless driving, too many speeding tickets, a lot of risk-taking activity or something like that. That will also tell the airline and typically who's hiring you whether you've got good enough character or not to maybe take the risk on hiring this person. So you've got that type of stuff that you're going to go through, and then you've got the training, which has just happened here recently. They've called it's a PRIA training records database, and that database basically has all your training records from the beginning all the way to your current status of where you're at. And that's something that has been a result of several airlines crashes as well. And the Amazon one that went down in Houston was a recent one that pushed that database into existence now.
Wow. Okay. Jeez. Wow. Wow. So tell us, during the screening process, they're gonna go through the psychological tests and all that. In the psychological test, could someone play the game so well that if he's like, if he's depressed, he's got dark thoughts and all that, are they able to catch someone right away? Or can some people actually outwit these people who are giving their exam?
There are always cracks that people are going to get through. Where there's a will, there's a way. Just like airport security, where there's a will, there's somebody's going to try to get something through and might be successful at it. So let's just put it this way. So once you get past those pieces of it, you've still got to go through a lot more training. You're going to go through initial in-dock training. You're going to go through some motionless-based sim training or cockpit procedures training. Then you're also going to go through in-cockpit training through a simulator. So you still got to pass a lot of further things and a lot of more tests before you even get to the level when you're actually on an airplane in a cockpit.
Wow.
And then when you get to the cockpit, you still got to pass what's considered your initial online experience, IOE. And you have to do all this with check airmen. And the part of the evaluation of everybody that comes through is still evaluating their crew resource management skills, their psycho evaluation that's going on between the crew and how do they work with others and stuff like that. So there's a lot of pieces there that it doesn't mean that somebody couldn't get through, but it's pretty hard. And it would have to be very consistent over a long period of time, because you're talking about 3 to 4 months of training right there.
There you go. That was my next question coming up. You beat me to it. Yes. It's a long process, 3 to 4 months training. So yeah, I think that within that time span, they pretty much have a pretty good idea who they're dealing with.
Yes, very much.
And I had this one fellow, as you know, House, and all the people out there who follow me daily on social media. I got my little video clips, Pilot Bob, and through one of those clips, I had someone ask me if someone is the age, like in the late 50s, if it's too late for him or her to consider becoming a pilot. So I answered my way, and the answer you gave me off air was pretty satisfying. But now we're on air, so I'm going to give you a chance, Haas, to let these people know who are wondering out there if it's too late to become a pilot, even though you're in your late 50s.
If you're already a private pilot, I would say definitely not. If you're really rambunctious of making this happen, you can get your 1,500 hours in with all your ratings within 5 years. Some people have done it within 3. So you still have a good 10 to 12 years.
Oh, you're frozen up. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here. Haas is frozen up. Haas, I don't know if you can hear me on your end. Maybe you can come back into the studio, go out and come back in. So we're experiencing some technical difficulties that happens from time to time. That's what you get with internet. It's not always reliable. You're tuned in to Pilots on the Fly. I'm Captain Bob Dallas. I am your host of Pilots on the Fly, co-host with Captain Cartwright. He's the captain on the Boeing 767 on a freighter. There you go. He's back. So, folks,
Yeah, sorry about that.
he probably went through a static storm at what is it, 35,000 feet?
All right, yeah. Back to what we was talking about. I'm not sure where I dropped off at, but you know, a 12-year career right now is not unheard of. And if you're 50, you get your ratings in 3 to 5 years, and still have 10 to 12 years left to become an airline pilot is not unheard of right now in this pilot shortage world.
Okay, and we're talking here. Someone could aspire actually to be piloting, maybe not to become a captain, but maybe a first officer, like in a 777. It's possible.
Oh, it's even possible to become a captain.
Oh wow!
At some point. Yeah.
Okay, so to become a captain, how long does it take? Because let's say you're hired, you come in, it's a month, you're flying, you're a first officer. Before you can aspire to become a captain, how long might it take?
Well, you remember we're talking about your ATP rating to be able to get into the airlines is going to require 1,500 hours. Now, to be second in command, once you get that ATP rating, it's going to require another 1,000 hours minimum of 121 flying in the airlines to become another captain. You have to have at least 1,000 hours of SIC. So
Wow.
it's possible to still make it. You can do 1,000 hours in just over a year and a half if you're at a real busy airline.
What is it that an airline is looking in a pilot that the airline's going to say, okay, he or she is qualified to become a captain? What is it exactly that? What are the traits in a pilot that an airline looks for, saying, okay, this fellow, this lady's got leadership? So, what is it exactly that they're looking for?
That is a great question, Bob, because one of those things leading people, leading your aircraft in particular situations with experience, understanding weather very much is it. Being able to be in command of all operations that you're in control of. So there's a lot of requirements on top of that. And there's been, even in my airline, there's been quite a few captains that have, well, I'd say captain LGs that have washed out from being a captain because they didn't get through the training and they weren't fit yet to be captain as the training progressed.
Okay, all this leads us, okay, so you went for a training, you had an illustrious career, 12 years, you got 12 years out of it, fantastic. The obligatory age for retirement, I believe, is this in the entire airline industry, or is it like in the US or Canada? My take on it is that you have to be 65 to be able to retire as a airline pilot. Is that so?
That is today's age, and ICAO's limit has been in place since 2006. 2006 is when they raised it from the age of 60 to 65. And then prior to that, even before then, the original threshold of a pilot was 45. So they raised it even from 45 to 60, and now from 60 to 65. Now, in July 2022, South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and a Texas Congressman, Chip Roy, introduced a bill. It's called the Let Experienced Pilots Fly Act. Now, with this bill, we'd see the retirement age from commercial airline pilots raised by 2 more years to 67. But that would only affect us in America. That would not affect what the world still is at 65. So the ICAO's limit is still 65. If America raised it to 67 to try to shorten or to lessen the pilot shortage, I should say, there's the thinking that could help the issues that the airlines are facing with this pilot shortage. But here's a big problem with that. One, they will only be able to fly in America at that point. So all the senior captains typically that are flying the airlines are flying all over the world. They're flying the trips that they can be done with, fly 12 days and be done with the rest of the month. And, they've got the seniority to be able to do that and do those trips up until the point of 65. And typically, if they've been flying for quite a while. Now, you take that 65-year-old pilot where he's had a real cushy job, and you're going to put him back to flying 4 and 5 legs a day in America, just doing short hops. He's not going to like it. He's not going to stick around for that. So I don't see that will benefit the pilot shortage like the bill thinks it will, or even these senators think it will. I think it's going to be it's going to take a lot more ingenuity than just the 65 to 67 age of America to help with that.
Do you think by pushing our luck, they might push that eventually if they really, really are stuck to age 70? Do you think at age 70 someone's still got all the faculties?
I don't think so. I don't think that will happen. Not to say that we don't have some probably age 70 people that could still fly to age 70. I think the issue is going to be, again, these people actually wanting to. You're talking about high-income people that were flying cushy job routes that are now having to go back and fly routes that are less cushy and a lot more work. So I don't think it's going to help with things. And the other thing that's happening since all the COVID stuff, there has been a quiet push about the medical, some of the medical stuff that we have to go through on a regular basis when it comes to your heart and your medical passing every 6 months that we have to do to go through a medical exam. Now, on the medical side of that, we have to do an EKG at least once a year. And then at a certain age, it can even become every 6 months. Now, that's to check your heart and make sure everything's still going well with your heart. Well, there's been some quiet push of trying to relax some of the standards of that typical test. Well, and not a lot of people are liking that. So there's been some pushback on that. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out.
Well, as we say in aviation, time flies when you're having fun. Folks, this is it. I guess we covered just about everything I had to cover tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you to you TikTokers, to the people on LinkedIn, to the people on Facebook and on YouTube. And, of course, if you want to follow Haas, our captain, he's on LinkedIn. He's known as at James Cartwright. If you want to follow him on YouTube, Monkey Wrench Garage. That's at monkey_wrench_garage. He's got some really nice stuff on there. You guys want to check him out. And as for myself, I'm all over the place, all over social media. Pilot Bob Dallas. You can see me everywhere. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Captain. Stick around for the traditional meet and greet backstage. We'll be having a little party. We're going to continue a little bit with the TikTokers over here and the people who have tuned in on the other stations. Well, we'll be seeing you soon. So we want to thank Jenny Delane for producing the show, and we'll be around sometime soon.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good seeing you guys. Thanks for tuning in.